Welcome back, everybody, to the Real Estate Talk Show, your source for all things real estate. And we have here with us George Carras, president of RealNet Canada. And I just won't let him leave. He's here, everybody, because you know what? We are covering so much. So maybe we can touch upon the condo side of things as well. Now, we did finish off talking about a little bit of a report card, because when you explain new home sales and the fact that they're down 4%, that's a year over year. And can we also say that in the first quarter, typically that is a softer period within the year? Is that something that we can say generally, or not the case?
You know, I think that may have been something that was relevant a long time ago.
Okay.
I think a lot of it tends to deal with supply.
Right.
So when on the high-rise side, builders will tend to launch. They won't launch in December.
In Christmas,
right?
No, yeah.
But they'll be getting ready for that, end of January, February launch. But so I think you do have the sales driven off of supply, but you also do see, it's not unusual to see successful launches, to June. No one will want to launch in the summer, but typically now, particularly around with investors, you're marketing all the time to more sophisticated brokers and investors. So it's not really a seasonal thing. That's an all-year thing. And it's very valuable for the development industry because they're getting input. What do they want? What's the market demand? Give me some specifics on size, on price, on amenities, on input that the developer uses to better design their product, set their price. Their location's kind of, bed is made when you buy the land.
Right.
So that happens all the time.
It's a great point, because people forget to mention, or to realize, I should say, that when developers are deciding to do a launch or deciding on a plot of land that they are going to build on, they have years and years of data. They are taking all of what their current owners, people that have bought, they're looking at the demographics, they're looking at the trends, and they're making sure that they provide a product in which people will ultimately want to buy. The
buyer for those units will be one of two. It's either someone who wants that future housing form for themselves or for a family member, or it's someone who is buying that as an investment, thinking that and believing that, and that's the other research that's taking place all the time, is by those retail investors, that someone will want to live there, and looking at increasing data on what will they pay to live there, and where is there, and is it near transit, is it near amenities, and that's where the complexity of the way that the urban intensification is taking shape. Locations are changing.
Right.
Transit is changing, but also looking at development along existing transit is vital. They tend to outsell. So if you're within 500 meters of a subway station versus being off, your opening month sales are dramatically better, 20% better.
The same rules apply, George, when we're talking resale. I mean, anytime when investors are looking and comparing, it's location. So give us a little bit more of a report card, because people still have that trepidation. They think that it's all investors from around the world that are buying up those units, and that's not the case. But new ones are coming to market to meet a demand, and that's a demand that really is a healthy one.
And you look at the retail investor has used. So talk about why would people have invested when they did? There was an opportunity for value creation because you see an area where you're going to supply housing where there was a need that wasn't fulfilled, and renting it. Now, the complexity going forward is, the retail investor has been really carrying the day for the supply of new rental stock in this market. It's on the back of that, retail condo investor that we now have rental accommodations in the form of condos.
Yeah.
Well, institutional investors have really started to take a look at that. And there's two things. We're talking about how those commercial real estate worlds and development residential worlds are now overlapped, which is now kind of the increase in the amount of institutional purpose-built rental, which we're starting to see. It's not a tidal wave, but there's more of it, and it's because the same thesis that was there for the retail investor is absolutely there for the institutional investor.
There's a need for it.
And when you look at the sites that some of these developments are taking place on, in intensification, where do you get more land for housing? You get it by redeveloping existing commercial real estate assets. Who owns the commercial real estate assets? Well, those typically are, either public REITs, real estate investment trusts, institutional investors. They have the land, if you will, to be able to intensify it. So there's a demand from all of those investors for the same income returns that retail investor is looking for. So a lot of the sites are held in those very strong hands, and the demand that's there for people to want to live someplace and rent.
There's more choice now, and you have more competition.
And I think that's it. I think when we're looking forward, typically when you look at a condo competing for rental versus the purpose-built rental that exists today, that stock was built 50, 60 years ago. I think what you're now starting to see is the new form of that purpose-built rental, which will have a lot more condo-like amenities. So one is not better than the other. They just will now both exist.
Yeah, you have to be aware of it when you're making choices.
And I think now that speaks to complexity. Complexity is not decreasing; it is increasing on both. The low-rise, high-rise story, but even within the high-rise story, there's added complexity about purpose-built rental versus condo.
And there's a lot of people now, that are saying, okay, I'm waiting, or there's been delays in terms of their new builds. So the expectations it would be ready in a certain number of years, and now they're waiting. So we get a lot of calls in terms of their concern because of these looming reports that the bubble will burst, and they're afraid that, the gains in which they've achieved waiting for this to be built in the last 3 to 4 years, they feel that all of that sense of concern that, just like you said, if there's other players coming into the game to offer rentals, and I mean, we've come full circle, George. I mean, remember, we had apartments out there. That was the way in which a landlord, owned these buildings and they rented out apartments. Those were then turned into condo conversions because people would rather own, and that just kind of made sense. And it certainly started in the States and then happened here in our neck of the woods. But now all of a sudden, people are realizing we need rentals. We need an ability for people to actually have that apartment style option. And you have people that own the land saying, okay, you know what, we need to get into this game too. So the pie, although people might see it as being somewhat diluted, more players in the game to offer this type of choice. Do you deem that, though, to be, isn't there enough room for everybody?
People have to live somewhere. You're right. Right. So that's do they stay in the basement of their parents' home, or they got to live somewhere, and there's going to be the need for rental accommodation. Now, this is where I think the condo is going to play a really important role, because as a form of high-rise accommodation, if you think about this, it fulfills all of the needs we have in our community. It provides a rental stock. It provides a vehicle in order for it to be a rental stock, a vehicle for an investor to invest in. And it also provides for the potential one day for home ownership.
Absolutely.
By someone, which is very different than purpose-built rental, which means there's one owner and 300 tenants. So it's important to have a balance of professionally managed buildings that have a thesis in the market to deliver rental accommodation. But also, I think the role of the condo increasingly important because it does provide for future home ownership options, but it's more complicated to manage. So. Right.
And we have been in an imbalance. Is that a correct analysis? I mean, really, there has been truly an imbalance in terms of
new supply of high. Of all of the new of all the new delivery of rental stock to this market, the vast majority of that form has been through condominium development and the retail condo landlord, if you will, providing that stock. And now we're at a bit of a transition where I think you're going to see that continue. I think it's more complicated for that retail condo investor in that space now, because the price gains we're seeing there, on the condo side, we saw price per foot price increases of 2%.
Okay.
On the detached low-rise side, we saw 12%.
All right.
So the price gains are very different. They're more muted in the high-rise side, and there's a little more complexity because you will see competition for that rental tenant coming not just from other condo investors, but also from institutional investors.
George Carras, I've told you this before. You are truly fascinating. Love chatting with you. So again, we will do this soon. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me here.
All right, everybody. So there you have it. I think we got a lot of information, but I know you're going to have questions, and every time George is on, you certainly don't hold back. So keep them coming. All right, everybody. So don't go anywhere, because we have coming up next TV host and financial expert Gail Vaz-Oxlade. She's going to join us over the phone to share her top 10 tips for first-time home buyers. But actually, this applies to all of us. Stick around.